In the second half of the 2020s, producer Eiji Aonuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi can bring open-air Zelda's story and graphics to the next generation and match the potential offered by the Nintendo Switch 2. As we have been living with this style since 2014, but it can't continue. As for Zelda to remain the timeless Nintendo franchise, it can never stay too long with the same look, evolving with each generation, and far more drastically than what is the case for Mario and Metroid. Why is this? Zelda, and specifically its 3D section, has far more competition than any other Nintendo franchise. And in the late 2020s, it will be more than ever. Most of all, as its true rival will be back, the original open world king, The Elder Scrolls, but also The Witcher 4. Which begs the real question, which artistic path is the Zelda team on with so much more power than what they had when developing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? As Zelda is at a crossroad and could go in two different directions, either more childish or more mature than Tears of the Kingdom. And one of the key factors that has to be taken into consideration is that the gaming demographic is getting older and older. And with that in mind, it is clear that another cel-shaded adventure like the Wind Waker will be a harder sell. Besides, that style has been done and is playable for GameCube and Nintendo Switch 2 online. It would also go against the majority of the new open world fanbase that came after playing games such as The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim and The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and then got hooked to Zelda through Breath of the Wild. Many of them have gradually been lost, or at least fatigued after Tears of the Kingdom, and most recently Age of Imprisonment. And though old pre-Wild Zelda fans might have opinions about the great change in the demographic of our favorite series, it can no longer be ignored that in order to be a 20+ million franchise, Nintendo and the Zelda team needs to keep the new majority, which, let's face it, are adults between 20 and 40 years old. That is a problem that didn't exist back when Zelda was on the struggling Wii U, as now the franchise needs to hold far more existing fans than it would possibly gain. Risking it all again with a Wind Waker art style which caused massive commercial collapse from what the 3D franchise was used to after Ocarina of Time is simply not the path. We have to remember, Eiji Aonuma and the Zelda team back then were forced to make Twilight Princess, and it was its success in Western markets that saved Zelda in the second half of the 2000s. Success is something that is gained and then maintained, and it is clear that the Legend of Zelda franchise is fragile when it comes to its visuals. That is the brutally honest truth. Zelda being Nintendo's most successful Western franchise. And to stay that way, or if you will, be in the top 5 best-selling games of this and future Nintendo systems, it needs to be more catered to the angry Joes who joined us in the celebration of modern Zelda in 2017. Many of them returned for Tears of the Kingdom, but are increasingly more on the fence and awaiting how the next game will not only play, but also look. Simply put, expectations are higher than ever for the next Zelda game, and Nintendo, and naturally the Zelda team, know it. They cannot risk the franchise again like they did in the 2000s, or it will harm sales. We need something that can continue the success, and while the Wind Waker may be one of the best Zelda games, with an art style that has aged better than any other, it is simply not as marketable in Western markets. History has proven this. But what is the solution then for the visuals on the Nintendo Switch 2? Two-faced. The first stage is a return to the literal 3D roots with an Ocarina of Time remake. A proper demonstration of what a darker, more realistic Zelda art style can look like in the second half of the 2020s. Here we find one of the reasons why the rumor about it being under development by Nintendo but a different team from the Zelda team could be correct. All to keep the new fanbase, as nothing will blow people's minds and break the internet as the reveal of Ocarina of Time remake on the Nintendo Switch 2. With expanded world, new and refined gameplay, and most of all, being the by far best looking Zelda game to date. Here is the perfect way to hold over the open-air fans, while the actual Zelda team continues to cook the new Zelda game for this Switch 2 generation. After all, with Tears of the Kingdom out in 2023 and needing at least 5 years of development until its successor, the Zelda team will only get one chance for an exclusive new open-air Zelda game on this system. Why? As the next 3D Zelda game, after the one after Tears, will at best be on the Switch 2, but as a dual release, the swan song of this currently new system in 2033 or 34. and that depends on whether the next Zelda game on Nintendo Switch 2 will be out by the first half of 2029 or not. So what art style might the Zelda team have gone for? If Ocarina of Time Remake is real, yet another middle ground. But not between the Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild, as that was Skyward Sword, but rather something between Tears of the Kingdom and the rumored Ocarina of Time Remake. Or closer to the live-action Zelda movie, which we now have official images of. Luckily for us, the Switch 2 edition of Tears of the Kingdom is below the bare minimum, and though there's no chance of reaching the graphical fidelity of the Witcher 4 Unreal Engine 5 tech demo, what we end up with will still be a massive leap. And when it comes to Nintendo's best sellers, Zelda is pretty much the graphical system seller, and the proof that Pokémon is decades behind. With that said, Zelda for the most part is always reaching higher. You might already see the potential, as Nintendo is yet to realize anything up to the level of the 2011 Wii U Zelda HD Project tech demo. If this is what was possible, soon to be 15 years ago on the Wii U, which struggled with running Breath of the Wild in 720p 30fps, then you can only imagine what the Nintendo Switch 2 can accomplish. And the best part is that even Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition didn't utilize the real game changer, namely Nvidia's deep learning super sampling, which was pointed out by Digital Foundry in June 2025, with the following quote: "There's no sign of Nvidia's DLSS or any more recent upscaling tech in either game, which is a missed opportunity given the hardware support for it." End quote. Upscaling power that is only waiting to be put into action. So let's collect our graphical Triforce for the next Zelda, a far more powerful system that can deliver next-gen experience. Then, there already exists a more realistic Zelda direction that simply hasn't been playable in a new Zelda game in 20 years. That's wisdom. And finally, unused green Nvidia DLSS upscaling, and optimizing potential. All of these factors are proof that much more can be done. After all, of the 70 or above releases, only Kirby Air Riders was developed from the beginning for the Nintendo Switch 2. In the cases of Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, development started for the Nintendo Switch. In other words, the next Mario and Zelda games will be the ones that set a new standard, but in different directions. 3D Mario will always be playful, as its main target are families with children. But Zelda can move in the direction that Western gamers will embrace in a heartbeat. Another step towards total dominance for Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch 2, not only in Japan, but also in the European and American markets. Plus, they have another middle point in their Triforce, Monolith Soft's Kyoto branch. The technical masters who made open Zelda possible, as this Zelda supporting company with studios in Tokyo and Kyoto are graphical and optimizing masters, and the end result are some of the best looking, story-driven and optimized games. And key to us is that Monolith Soft Kyoto are likely hard at work with the Zelda team to push the Nintendo Switch 2 to its limits, making sure that this game looks and runs like a dream when Tears of the Kingdom, even without DLSS, runs at 60 frames per second in 2K or 1440p on this system. And since we know that the price will be $80 for a new Zelda game, then we naturally have expectations, including graphical/visual, and a better looking successor is simply a requirement. Imagine Tears' level of gameplay with an art style that screams next gen. An even more refined version of the 2011 Zelda HD Project tech demo would be just that. The successor to Twilight Princess art style, with far better lighting and details that will allow this game to age far more gracefully than what we saw with the 20th anniversary Zelda game from 2006. At the same time, there's no need for ultra-western realism like Red Dead Redemption 2, Witcher 4 or Elder Scrolls 6. We don't really want to see Link with a normal human face. That is what we have the movie for, and we have already seen it from the movie's screenshots. Instead, the game should differ enough from the movies, and a step into a more realistic, though at the same time with anime traits, art style, or if you prefer graphics, would be the perfect blend for Zelda on the Nintendo Switch 2. But how do you think the Zelda team will take advantage of the Switch 2, and what do you want the next open Zelda to look like? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to give this video a like, subscribe and press the notification bell, as we have a big Zelda collab coming up next that you don't want to miss. Finally, A big thanks to you for watching, and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our raw producer, Jonathan, and heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.